Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Mall Girl Pearl and Two Thumbs Down. As I was thinking about how I was there for the premiere of both of these episodes, I'm realizing that season 9, and especially 9B, is unique in me being there for the premiere of their episodes. So, yeah, it might be repetitive for me to talk about watching the episodes the first time that they aired, but this is a pretty unique phenomenon to season 9 that you won't really see me talk about with the upcoming seasons because the way I watched the show completely changed soon after. So I'm going to proudly say that these are two episodes I watched on the night of their premieres, and anyone who is tired of me saying it are just gonna have to deal with it. I wish I could put emojis in the YouTube subtitles because I feel like the one of someone like blowing steam out of their nose would really get my point across of how unserious I'm being. I love that emoji. Anyway, as always, thank you to everyone watching the video today and to everyone who puts up with or even likes the random bullshit I throw into these reviews. Case in point, the first minute of this one. And now, let's just get right into these episodes. Ma Girl Pearl is an episode that I've been very excited to get to since, like, the beginning of doing these reviews. Doing the written reviews, I mean, but of course also doing the YouTube reviews, especially since by this point the YouTube reviews have become revised versions of the written reviews just with the same scores, which means that anything I never got around, or never thought, to saying before, I could say now. And I've got a lot I want to talk about. And I think y'all already know what the first of those things is. Pearl! Last review, I was just talking about how Pearl always is needing more love, and now not only is she just in this episode, but this is an episode literally all about her. And not just about her and SpongeBob getting up to shenanigans like the majority of episodes about a character other than SpongeBob are, but like this episode is about Pearl. SpongeBob isn't here. He's a cameo character in this episode. This is huge. Never before had this happened in a SpongeBob SquarePants episode. Closest we'd come to this point was Rise and Shine, and that was a 4-minute long episode. This one is the whole 11 minutes. Literally groundbreaking. And it's the fact that the first episode to really be this SpongeBob light is a Pearl episode of all things. I just love that a lot. And I love Pearl in this episode a lot, but I'll talk more about that later. The next thing I love about this episode is all of the background details. This episode is a visual treat to watch, and in my opinion is the episode that established the precedent of post-sequel episodes, including a lot of references and Easter eggs throughout their runtime. Obviously, other episodes have had Easter eggs before, but I know, and y'all know, that this show had a huge uptick in them in the post-sequel era, and I'd say that this is the episode that ushered that in, being the first to have this many of them at once. We're not quite at what I'd call the era of the self-referential turn in this show. That doesn't come until at least season 12, but we're definitely entering into an era of Easter eggs that I think come more from the motivation of keeping the world of Bikini Bottom fleshed out and consistent, rather than engaging in self-reference and retrospection like newer episodes of the show do. But that's a topic for another time, particularly when I've actually sat down and talked about what the hell the self-referential turn even is. So anyway, background details. This episode's environmental design is fantastic. There's so much jam-packed into most of these shots that there's always something to look at, which keeps this episode engaging even when there isn't much happening on the plot side of things. And these background details are also the source of most of SpongeBob's cameos in this episode, so I really love how having these details and Easter eggs kind of feels like a reward for watching the episode attentively, which is something else I'll talk about more and more as we get to newer and newer episodes. I know I talked about it a lot during my most recent reviews of the season 14 episodes. But yes, let's talk about the plot now. Or really, I want to talk about Pearl again, but I can multitask. Since this is a rare Pearl episode, this episode takes the opportunity, much like Larry's Gym did with Larry, to breathe some life into Pearl's character and give it some substance. It's nice to see her character grow even just a couple steps beyond being the typical teen archetype, which is funny given how that's in many ways the point of this episode, both story-wise and, like, production-wise. Ma Girl Pearl begins with Pearl wanting to hang out with her friends, but she can't because they're all at work, all coincidentally working at the mall. I'm honestly a little surprised that Pearl is the only one of her friends to not have a job, because on one hand, you'd think cheap-ass Mr. Krabs would make Pearl get a job, but also this is in line with how he kind of spoils her at times, so perhaps that is why she's never felt the need to go get a job either. But since all of her friends are working, Pearl decides that she's gonna get a job too, so she's not left out. And it's funny that I said all that about Mr. Krabs, as when Pearl announces that she's gonna get a job, he's ecstatic because that means he won't spend her money anymore. Unfortunately for Pearl, getting a job is not as easy as just saying it, and she gets denied from all of the places that her friends work at. Wow, Mall Girl Pearl accurately predicted the current job market. Anyway, when Pearl sits on a bench moping about being unable to find a job, an elderly fish played perfectly by Betty White overhears her plight and offers Pearl a job at her shop located in a dimly lit, decrepit corner of the mall called the Grandma's Apron. Basically, it's if stereotypical grandmotherdom was made into a store. And at first, Pearl has no problem with this whatsoever. She needed a job, she has a job. The owner, Beatrice, seems nice, all is good. That is until her friends judge her for working there because it's a store for old people. Obviously, this is just stereotypical teenagers being stereotypical teenagers, but it's also ridiculous. Only time you should be judging people about their place of work is if they're working for an awful organization, whether that be the police, Lockheed Martin, any insurance company, etc. But judging someone for working at a store because it's not cool, boy bye. What I really like about this episode is that even though her friends judge her, Pearl never starts judging Beatrice or her store. In fact, she embraces it. And so this is why I think that this is a good episode for Pearl as a character, as we see her actually deal with a conflict and it establishes her values and such. Very basic character writing here, which is good. We don't need that much complexity in an 11-minute episode of a sitcom, but that's more than what Pearl usually gets, so I'm happy. Beatrice gives Pearl advice to just be comfortable with herself and her interests, no matter what other people say, which is a good lesson. And so Beatrice teaches Pearl how to have fun, the grandma way, and it's nice to see the two getting along. And then when Pearl's friends come down to the Grandma's Apron and make fun of Pearl some more, we see Beatrice amusingly use her grandma power to put them in their place. Wasn't I just talking about the trope of kick-ass grandmas during my review of Extreme Spots? Guess that trope is still alive and well. Now I want to go watch Hoodwinked. But anyway, I like that even though Pearl affirms that she's being true to herself and that's good, Beatrice still encourages her to go be with her friends instead of just being a grandma, that she's still young and can and should act like it. I think that's a nice way of going past the typical trope of, oh, your friends teased you once, so they suck. Not saying that Pearl's friends are the greatest, but I mean, sometimes our friends hurt us, and we can still be friends after that. The conflict just needs to be repaired and resolved. Yeah, the episode wasn't thinking about all of this, but I am, so that's what matters. The last thing I wanted to mention about Mall Girl Pearl is that it's really funny. I mean, for one thing, there were all the SpongeBob cameos. Throughout the episode, he has a small little background plot with Squidward where he's just kind of chasing him around, and it's hilarious. It's even funnier since we don't see them speak at all during this, and SpongeBob's only line is at the very end of the episode when he gives Beatrice back her hand, and this little interaction kind of lampshades SpongeBob's very obvious absence in this episode. And then I also loved the bit with Mr. Krabs literally swallowing his wallet. That was pretty funny. Pearl causing havoc at the mall stores, just like SpongeBob and SpongeBob You're Fired, was also amusing, and the joke of Pearl fretting about hanging out with her dad was also perfect, and I also liked the bit with Myrtle, just lots of great jokes here. And so I just really enjoyed Mall Girl Pearl, that there is really, so much to like here. The episode is a feast for the eyes, literally, and it's unique, especially for when it premiered, so it stands out a lot in my eyes, and it's definitely a prime candidate for rewatches whenever I put my Season 9 DVDs in the DVD player. And I truly can't get enough of this being a Pearl-focused episode. I need more. And so all of this is why this episode is being placed in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.2 out of 10. Next up is Two Thumbs Down. This episode isn't as memorable as its sister, but that doesn't mean it's any worse, at least not automatically. Really, I think that this is another fun little episode. It's also an episode that reminds me a lot of Funny Pants and Face Freeze, largely because of the similarities between the plots of all three of these episodes. But I think the best thing about this episode is how it does my favorite thing of turning the mundane and or silly into something intensely and facetiously melodramatic, which is what Funny Pants did when SpongeBob lost his laugh, and so this episode follows in that episode's footsteps by doing the same when SpongeBob loses his thumbs. Two Thumbs Down begins with SpongeBob and Patrick locked in an intense thumb war. I am now being reminded that it has been a long time since I've done a thumb war with someone. That kind of makes me sadder than it probably should. I should ask someone to do a thumb war with me. Anyway, the episode starts early by giving drama to the absurd with SpongeBob and Patrick signing an aggression-packed post-thumb war. Like, that's hilarious. Reminds me of Snowball Effect. Following this, we see SpongeBob give people thumbs up all throughout the day. He gives one to Patrick, who is taken by the gesture. And so are the Krusty Krab customers he gives the thumbs up to. Even Squidward is a bit touched by it, and that's super sweet. And SpongeBob going around the restaurant and later town and giving everyone these thumbs up is wholesome. And I, too, would love that stamp of approval from the little yellow guy. I think that would fix me, genuinely. However, although SpongeBob's thumbs are sweet, one might consider them to be excessive, an opinion that is clearly shared by more than just the audience by the time Sandy gives SpongeBob a warning that he's doing the gesture too much, making it no longer special. In theory, I agree with Sandy, I guess, but also I don't think a gesture necessarily needs to be sparse to have meaning. And then it's hilarious how after SpongeBob, of course, doesn't heed this warning, the next interaction he has with a Bikini Bottomite has the guy creeped out by SpongeBob's persistent thumbs up for literally every action he takes. When SpongeBob dismisses Sandy's warning about his thumbs up losing its meaning, he says those famous last words, "What could go wrong?" And I think what's really funny about what ends up happening is how unexpected it is. After all, we were led to believe that SpongeBob's thumbs up would just become something scary or meaningless for other people, not that his thumbs would literally snap. The sequence of them breaking is pretty entertaining, with all the live action parts really emphasizing how painful this is supposed to be, and this is all done with the perfect amount of drama as well, which I love as always. We cut to SpongeBob at the hospital, specifically in the part of the hospital for thumb injuries, since of course they have that, and the doctor tells SpongeBob that he may not ever use his thumbs again. Fun fact about this scene, this really shows Clancy Brown's range. He voiced the doctor here, who of course doesn't really sound much like Mr. Krabs at all, although he does sound like a certain Avatar The Last Airbender character, and a certain DC one as well. Links in the description for anyone wondering what I'm referencing here. Man, the voice cast in this show is just so damn good. With SpongeBob's thumbs out of commission, his whole life changes overnight. He tries to get back to work at the Krusty Krab, but without opposable thumbs, he can't do much of anything. At least not right away. He hasn't had a chance to practice it all yet, of course. I'm surprised Squidward even offers to help him here. That's new. But since SpongeBob is unable to do his job, Mr. Krabs lets him go, and Patrick steps in as the new fry cook, leaving SpongeBob to traverse the streets of Bikini Bottom looking forlorn and thumbless. And I mean, as much as it sucks to see SpongeBob sad, this does give us a really nice musical number, which is accompanied with many gorgeous backgrounds and generally fun visuals. And also the whole thing just makes me feel nostalgic, which I suppose makes sense because blah blah blah, I watched this episode 10 years ago when it premiered, blah blah blah. Yeah, I get it. It's SpongeBob's dramatics about losing his thumbs that really carry this episode, and I love it. After the song, we see SpongeBob sitting in his home where the blinds are shuttered and he's grown a 5 o'clock shadow. The scene with Sandy here is also just so good and so hilariously dramatic with the voice acting from both Tom Kenny and Carolyn Lawrence, and the expressions are great too. And after this, SpongeBob decides he can't sit around moping anymore, so he trains his thumbs back to health. I always love an earned win. After a decent thumb training montage, SpongeBob goes right back to the Krusty Krab, where he wants his old job back, and to get it back, he challenges Patrick to a thumb war, and so we watch the two battle it out like they're fighting with real swords. It's silly and played so seriously, I love it, and I love seeing the people in the Krusty Krab, starting with Sandy, boosting SpongeBob's morale with some thumbs-up gestures of their own, giving him the second wind he needed to win the thumb war and take his job back, something that Patrick is rather amenable to, given that he hates work. Oh, Patrick, how relatable you are. Also, Mr. Krabs calls SpongeBob son here. Yes, I know that it doesn't mean actual son, but guess who's taking this as a crumb anyway? I definitely enjoyed Two Thumbs Down. It was a delightfully silly episode, and I loved that about it. It wasn't the funniest episode, but it definitely kept me entertained with how wonderfully absurd it was, and that's definitely a feat not to sneeze at. There really isn't much else for me to say about this episode, really, and so I'm gonna go ahead and put it in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. I've been thinking about when I want to start watching season 15 of this show. Right now, I've been doing a multi-week project of rewatching the show How to Get Away with Murder since I like that show and I have the opportunity to do this. So I think that maybe once I'm finished with that in a couple weeks, I'll get started on season 15. When I do so, I think I might just not make videos for a week just so I can get a good start on these episodes and their corresponding reviews. The YouTube script influence has left my written reviews being ridiculously long these days, so watching the episodes becomes a whole process too. But I want to get caught up on this show. Ugh, always something to do. Alright, well, let me just keep figuring out the timeline for that, and I'll let y'all go. So let me close things out here, and I'll see y'all in the next review.